Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today is now day 60 in the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And even though we are in day 60, there has not been a lot of changes in terms of territorial gains by either side as of today. We can confirm that if we start just in the vicinity of Kharkov, there was a multi-day operation starting back on the 22nd and continuing, in which we have seen multiple Ukrainian units attempt a probing action towards the Russian border in the direction just to the southwest of Belgorod. We can now confirm that at least one Ukrainian tank company, in conjunction with some armored fighting vehicles, did suffer some rather significant casualties in that operation to the northwest of Kharkov. And we continue to see a varying degree of low intensity probing operations by either side. Now, with that being said, we are continuing to see very, very heavy fighting in certain areas. And right now, we continue to see fairly heavy fighting within the vicinity of Lineman and just south of Izium. We continue to see very, very heavy fighting within the vicinity of Severodonetsk. We continue to see the Russians employ vast amounts of heavy artillery in what we believe is a continued battlefield preparatory work for a possible large-scale maneuver operation that would eventually look to encircle Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. We continue to see some very heavy fighting, urban house-to-house street fighting taking place within the vicinity of Popasnaya, and that continues as well. So again, just because the territorial gains are not showing, at least on this map, in terms of what is happening, that does not mean that that very heavy and intense fighting is taking place, for which it absolutely is. And then in Mariupol, we continue to see, contrary to initial reports coming out of the Kremlin, that the Ukrainian areas in the Azovstal plant would be sealed off and blockaded in these large metallurgical plants that exist on the eastern side of Mariupol. We do understand that there are continuing Russian artillery attacks taking place and continued Russian, what we would define as very, very heavy probing operations by the Russians looking to make gains within the confines of this plant. We do understand a significant amount of Russian combat power that was being deployed against Ukrainian targets in Mariupol have since been withdrawn. I would assume that some of those units would look to rest, refit, and then possibly be employed in further operations in areas such as Severodonetsk, Kramatorsk, and other areas. These units do not appear to be heavy mechanized units, but nonetheless, they would be utilized in the clearing and sweeping of some of these heavily built up urban areas that the Russians will have to obviously enter at some point. In other news, the Russians continue its tactical air campaign and cruise missile strikes on targets throughout Ukraine. Just recently, within the last 24 hours, you probably have seen this on the news as well, and other reports that indicate that multiple cruise missiles have struck targets inside of Odessa, and again, that is that preparatory work designed to reduce the Ukrainian fighting ability and its ability to both train and supply forces. We do know that the Russians are now starting to pay very, very close attention to some of these arms shipments by the West. We understand that in the current pipeline, there could be as many as up to 200 plus heavy artillery field guns coming from a multitude of nations, to include Slovakia, Poland, the Netherlands, and the United States as well. And we can anticipate cruise missile strikes on some of those shipments of arms and munitions that will be coming across either the Polish, Romanian, or Slovakian border. We think most of those are obviously coming across the Polish border, but I think the Russians are also paying very close attention to what's happening within the vicinity of Romania as well. And we can expect, as those shipments start to enter Ukraine, I would assume that we could see, once the Russians can identify where those shipments are located at inside of Ukraine, that they will be attacked by the Russian military, preferably long-range cruise missile strikes. We understand, for instance, some of the recent strikes against targets in Odessa were actually done by Bear bombers that had fired a KH-101 cruise missiles all the way from the Caspian Sea. And we're targeting, obviously, areas in and around Odessa in that operation. But as I had suspected, or I had believed, as the campaign initially started, that we would see this very lengthy and long air campaign with significant doses of cruise missile attacks on Ukrainian targets. And initially, obviously, we saw some of that, but the Russians went right for the proverbial jugular by going after Kiev, and obviously high risk, high reward, and that was unsuccessful. And now the Russians have resorted to more of a methodical campaign designed to reduce the risk of losses to its ground forces. But again, losses are occurring. We are seeing that Russian forces and Ukrainian forces are engaged in some really horrific street-to-street, house-to-house fighting in some of these built-up urban areas that are along the line of contact, or the front line, as you would call it. But operations, even though, again, we have not seen a heavy shift in territorial gains either way, the fighting is most ferocious and continues as we even make this video. But that's where we sit for today. We will continue to report and bring you content on the ongoing conflict that is taking place. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day, everybody.